Okay, with nutrition, I have yet to talk about the actual macros and the breakdown of them. I know I've mentioned them in like other nutrition videos before, but that was kind of like in passing and everything. So I'm going to get further into depth on the actual macros today or this week, so that way people have like a better understanding, or at least a basic understanding of the actual like three macros that there are, and the three are like protein, fats, and carbs. And now, primarily, you can use all three for like energy because there's this process called gluconeogenesis that you can convert protein into energy, but it's usually like more like in depth and like when it comes to converting protein over to energy. So like the whole like scientific process that you can get into, and like but you don't necessarily need to know like all the science and stuff and everything, but like it does require more energy to convert protein over into actual like glucose that you use for energy. So that's why your primary sources of energy that you want are carbs and fats, so that way you can actually use the proteins for like your daily bodily functions, plus like if you're especially if you're lifting, you want to use that for like a protein synthesis to be able to build more muscle. And like protein intake is actually like a kind of like tied into like your activity level. So the more active you are, the more protein you're going to need. And so like you do have like calorie counters like MyFitnessPal I've used before. So like and when it comes to first starting out, especially like getting your nutrition in check, you want like I'm like a firm believer that you want to use that those calorie counters, so you have like an understanding of how much calories are in like how much is in what versus how much is in something that you can compare to. So like a previous video talking about like McDonald's with like quality over quantity. Like if you're like I used the analogy that if you're to eat like at McDonald's like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're eating well over 4,000 calories, and it's 4,000 calories of shit food that you're not necessarily going to be able to like utilize as well as this. Like if you were to get like alternative sources, like instead of having like a Big Mac, you go and have like maybe like buy some ground beef at the grocery store and make your own burgers, versus okay maybe you are getting some salmon instead of like the fish fillet type of deal. So like the quality does come into play always, because like with using the calorie counters, it gives you an idea of like how much you're consuming, and also it breaks it down, and so you can see how much of the macros, the protein, the carbs, and the fats that you're actually utilizing. So now when it comes to actual like energy production, you get like 4 calories per gram of protein and 4 calories per gram of carbs. But like I said, with the gluconeogenesis of converting protein over into like the glucose and everything, the process is much more in depth, and like it takes a lot more to be able to do that. But if you want to really get into the science behind that, like definitely go like read articles and stuff, and like get into like maybe like other YouTube videos. Like I'm sure like YouTube channels like Shredded Sports Science can get into more in depth on stuff like that. For me, I'm just going to on here to kind of give you guys like a quick overview and kind of like good ideas, so that we can take it and like, okay, this is what like what he's talking about. Let me do further research and let me see what other people are talking about, so that way you can like make better decisions and stuff. Now with like not only in like a recovery, because like with the smart recovery, it's all about living a balanced lifestyle, making better choices and everything. You don't necessarily have to be in like addiction recovery, or like have like or overcoming any other like the mental disorders that are out there. You could be just someone who's like a normal everyday person that's just looking to better their life. And so this way I'm giving kind of like basic information, so that way people can get that like oh yeah, hey, he was talking about this and everything, so let me go and further check stuff out. So like so back with the 3 macros, the protein, the carbs, and the fats and everything. So like I said, proteins you want to use for like your daily bodily function and for your activity level. So like for instance, like if like you're someone like me who's lifting regularly, you're obviously going to need a lot more protein intake versus if you're just like in a sense have an office job and you're sitting on your ass all day and you go home and you Netflix and chill. So some of the numbers I've come across is like they base everything on like a 2,000 calorie diet, which is kind of generic, but it is a good base because like you could be like someone like me who's more active and might need 2,400 calories. You might be someone like I said who sits in the office all day and goes home and does the Netflix and chill, so you might only need like 1,800 calories a day, and of course I'm just talking about like general numbers, and like you have to take the numbers and stuff that I'm talking about and kind of look at your unique situation. Like, okay, well, I'm into bodybuilding, so I need and plus I do like cardio to be able to keep my body fat percentage down, so I need 2,500 calories a day plus this much protein, and like it's stuff that you can get really in depth with. So like and of course, like I've talked before, like eating regionally, eating for your blood type, and like you gotta take those and stuff into consideration as well. So like someone like me, I've come to find that like a high protein and a higher fat approach tends to work for me when it comes to like a macro consumption. Now, someone else, the next person might like have to lower their fat intake a little and maybe decrease their protein intake because like the high protein and higher fat content that like I intake might not necessarily work for them, so they might need more carbs and stuff. So with the energy consumption with the fats, you actually get the 9 calories per gram of fat. So like you might like think like, oh hey, look, I get more energy for fat, so I might want to be eating more fat because I get more energy and everything. So I use the fire analogy. I'm sure like everyone who's ever had like a wood stove in their place or has gone camping and has made a fire, you want to kind of look at like what the analogy that I use as like carbs and fat as like wood, in a sense like carbs are your kindling and your fat is like your logs that you put on. So like kindling is great for getting things started and keep things going for like a quick burn, and like you getting like in a sense like increase the fire by like throwing on a ton of kindling and everything, but you tend to burn through that stuff very quickly, whereas logs, they tend to burn more slowly but last longer. So you kind of have to find that fine balance between how much fat intake and how much carb intake you have, and it varies individual to individual. So like I said, like with me, a higher protein and a high protein, higher fat intake, I've noticed tends to work for me. So now you obviously still want to concentrate on quality. So like when it comes to like the fat intake for me, like I tend to like go for like more like fattier cuts of meat and everything. So like I tend to like go for like pork and like beef. Like when it comes to like ground beef, I usually tend to go with the 80% lean, 20% fat versus the 90-10. And plus I go with like usually sometimes when I do buy steaks and everything, I usually go for like stuff like ribeyes or like strip steaks and stuff like that. So for me, yes, I'm more on the animal side, animal-based side of the nutrition. So like if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you might have to find like healthy fat sources, like the substitute for like the fattier cuts of meat that I use. So like you might have to look for things like avocados are like the first thing that come to mind that are a healthy source of fat for you. So you're going to have to like do like a whole lot of digging to like see which foods work best for you, and this is why the whole elimination diet or elimination process comes in so that way you can kind of test your stuff yourself and everything. So again, like the three macros when it comes to this, the protein, the fat, and the carbs, you want to like be able to differentiate between the three. And like, yes, I do get energy from protein, but I want to have protein, concentrate on like making sure my organs function, my heart, liver, like my digestive system, lung, brain, like use the protein to be able to like utilize the protein for stuff like that, plus the added intake of protein that I'm doing if I'm lifting, and plus like you're going to need more protein if you're also like a runner, like a marathon runner or a swimmer. So like for instance, like if you're like the office person that I mentioned that isn't very active, they might only need like 50-60 grams of protein a day, versus someone like me who's lifting on a regular basis. I might need like 150 grams of protein a day, and like and of course there's also like the whole argument on like how much protein intake you actually need. Like there's like some that there's like three different charts or I say that you find that like some say you need 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. There's others that are saying 1 gram, and there's others that are saying upwards of 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight and everything. So like it's one of those things you kind of have to play around with to kind of find which approach works best for you. So like in the base like model, you might want to go on the lower end and see if like the 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound or the 1 gram per pound works for you. So like especially if you're not as active as like you're like elite athletes, or maybe even some like me, or like it's all dependent on your activity level. So that way like by kind of separating protein from carbs and fat, you can like therefore like let the protein concentrate and utilizing it for like bodily functions, for like for your activity level and stuff, and then like get into like carbs and fat and using those strictly for your like energy, like the fire analogy I use, like the kindling and logs and everything. So like and it's like this is like especially early on, like I mentioned, like the calorie counters like with MyFitnessPal. This lets you kind of like see the numbers, and it gives you data, like, and now they're not like 100% accurate. And of course like you might come across, like, especially like when you're looking at like when you're getting like a bag of like salmon, you turn around and you see the nutritional information, and it says, well, each fillet has 240 calories and this much protein, like 28 grams of protein and 12 grams of fat and 5 grams of carbs. It's not going to be like absolutely 100% accurate. It does give you like a very good ballpark educated guess on like because one fillet might be 235 calories and like 27 grams of protein. Next one might be 242 calories and has like 27 grams. Like they're going to be slightly different, but it gives you a good number that you can plug into the calorie counter app that you're going to use. So that way it gives you like a good idea. Like it gives you more data points instead of just sitting there like scratching your head and like trying to have to go through like the numbers. Like, okay, well, I had cereal and like milk for breakfast, and I had this for a snack. I had this yogurt for a snack, and like, okay, I just have to start adding up. And you can just pull out your app and be like, okay, well, I can just enter in the food and be like, okay, well, this gives me like a good idea of how much protein, carbs, and fat intake I'm taking. And then you can base those numbers off like how you feel and how you're like performing. It gives you another in a sense data point to kind of like up and down like your intake of your macros. So like 1 week you might with the macro breakdown, you might be intaking say like 150 grams of protein, and then like 100 grams of carbs, and like maybe like 25 grams of fat, and like oh, I feel a little sluggish, but then you flip it, and like maybe you lower your carbs down to maybe like 75 grams of carbs, and then up your fat intake to maybe 30 grams or something, and like you feel, oh, I feel slightly better. And then like maybe you like well, let me play around with my protein intake. I was taking 150 grams those last 2 weeks, and like I felt it was like slightly a slight difference. Let me up my protein intake by like an extra 10 grams, and you feel even better. Or maybe, oh, okay, well, I feel even more sluggish just by adding that extra 10 grams of protein or something. So it you kind of like at least when you're starting off, like to get a good understanding of like the not only the the calorie breakdown, but the macro breakdown, you would want to use the calorie counter. So like eventually, like you can get to the point where like me, I really don't track anything anymore, because like I've been doing this for probably like 7, 8, maybe 9 years. So like I've gotten like a good track record of like having used those calorie counters like MyFitnessPal, which is the one I used in the past, to be able to get that good foundation of being able to understand the numbers and like playing around with it and everything. So it's just like everything else that you do with like, your nutrition, your physical fitness, your mental health, and like everything. It's a process that's ongoing. It goes across your whole lifetime. So like and things might change, and they most likely will change over the course of your life. So like what might work for you in your 20s and 30s might not necessarily work for you in your 40s or 50s, or even your 60s and 70s and everything. So like having built going to build that foundation by using stuff like MyFitnessPal or like, other calorie counters, to get the good understanding of not only the calorie intake but the macro intake as well, and see what works for you. It gives you that good foundation, so that way you can, in a sense, like build that house up, and like so it doesn't come crumbling down and everything. Because if you have like a shoddy foundation when you're building a house, no matter how good it is, the big bad wolf is going to come across and just huff and puff and blow that house down, and like it's going to be like a house of cards and just crumble. So by getting a good understanding of the macros of protein, carbs, and fats, and like what intake of each one works great for you, it will help you out with increasing like your quality of food. Because like I've used like avocados for like a good plant-based source of fat and everything. So you're like, okay, well, I work great with taking 30 grams of fat, and this has 10 of them, and so I can use 3 of these and get my fat intake for the day. Now that might be a little expensive, so you might have to find like other cheaper sources and everything. So it's like it's a process where you're going to go into grocery stores and find deals, and like find which stores are like great to shop at for like produce, or which ones are great to shop at for meat, or vice versa, or like which ones are like great like one-stop shops where you can kind of like okay, I can know I go to store X and I can spend $125 a week and get the same things, versus like or I might have to do things slightly a few things different compared to store Y, where I spend $150. But like it's one of those things where like it's like an ongoing process. And like of course, like another thing with like macros is like especially with fat, like you need fat, because some vitamins and minerals are fat soluble, meaning that like your body only absorbs them with the combination of fat. So like a example that I know is vitamin A is like a prime example of vitamin or mineral that's fat soluble. So you need fat to be able to absorb the vitamin A for like and of course that's versus something like vitamin C, which is water soluble, which you need water to kind of like absorb into your body and stuff. And so that's like a whole nother story of like of not only matching your 3 macros of protein, carbs, and fats and stuff, but also matching like those like with like okay, how do I absorb the micronutrients of like vitamins and minerals? So I'll probably get into like the micro nutrients down the road and everything. So but like I just wanted this one kind of talk about the 3 macronutrients of fat, protein, and carbs and everything. So I'll probably talk about something else next week.